What's up, guys? It's your favorite Kiwi coach, and give me 6 months of your time. I'll give you the best golf swing of your life. So welcome back to the channel. In this particular video, we are going to be reacting to another YouTube golf instructor. This is going to be Segudo Golf again, the simple golf preacher, the cult-like following that he has. Let's go ahead and jump into this video. It's going to be all about Ben Hogan. What does he do with his hips throughout the backswing and downswing so he can have perfect, pure, excellent ball striking? So if you're interested in that, let's go ahead and jump in. But before we get into the video, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, and that is Kiwi Golf Japan. If you did not know, YouTube definitely does not pay the bills. If you want to help support this YouTube channel after the video is over, there will be a link down below. Go ahead and click on that, sign up for our Kiwi Platinum membership site. You guys are really going to help support this YouTube channel, and not only that, you also get access to 330 plus videos, and we post right around 20 new videos every single month. So if you want to get access to that after the video is over, there will be that link. Go ahead and click on that. And now let's get into the simple golf preacher. You know, what is Ben Hogan doing with those hips?
One of the best ball strikers of all time gave us this amazing tip that is going to transform your ball striking. It's really simple, and it's all about what you're doing with your hips in the golf swing. Most golfers will sway their hips back and forth in the swing like this, especially in the backswing, and it causes a lot of inconsistency and no power.
All right, let's stop it there. So the main point for him in this particular video is he's going to be taking a look at Ben Hogan's golf swing, who's one of the best ball strikers of all time. And the main point is for amateur golfers out there, this is not really for pro golfers, but specifically amateur golfers. If you want to have much better contact, if you want to be much more consistent, if you want that simple golf swing that he likes to say, this is going to be the best tips for you when it comes to moving the hips to be able to get more consistent. So let's continue with this video, and I'm going to start to react once he kind of gets to some of the major points.
Well, if you want a simple, easy, powerful golf swing like Ben Hogan, just feeling effortless, balls mashed in the center of the face, we just change how the hips work. So when you start getting your hips to work like this, you're going to love it. It's going to be like butter for your golf game. It's amazing. Ben Hogan's 5 lessons, there's a section in his book where he talks about the hips, and it's a really small section, and he says the hips need to move or turn in the golf swing like this. And the drawing shows the hips going from square here to turned. Now there's one little piece in that drawing that's just slightly off, and it makes a big difference. We're going to hammer out that piece. He shows the hips moving backwards like this, as if he's shifting his weight. But in reality,
let's stop it there. So this will be one of the major points of the video. So, you know, a lot of people who do watch Ben Hogan, he personally talks about this guy right here, Segudo, talks about moving kind of the center of the pelvis forward throughout most of the backswing. A lot of people who are Ben Hogan fans are going to be like, well, you know, in his book, he didn't really say that. So what he's trying to talk about now is, you know, maybe that's what he said he did, but that's not necessarily what he did. Now, I don't agree with Segudo Golf. I actually disagree 100%. So I do want to bring up my counterpoint before he gets into his point. And then from there, you guys can hear his point, and then you guys can make a decision on who do you think is correct. So over here, this is going to be taken from the book right there, and this is going to be, you know, the circles here is basically the pelvis, and what is the movement? So I'm assuming this circle right here, this black one, is going to be the setup position. And then I'm assuming right here, this is going to be kind of throughout the backswing. And then towards the top of the swing, I'm assuming this is going to be here, or maybe this is even meant to be impact. I'm not quite sure because I don't have the book on me currently at this current point, but these are kind of the circles throughout different positions. So now what Segudo is going to say is in the real golf swing, Ben Hogan actually moved his center of his pelvis, right, which would be kind of the center of this circle right here, this oval, continuously forward or kind of lateral towards the target side throughout most of the backswing, which I actually heavily disagree with. And if you watch his backswing, you're going to see exactly what I'm about to say. What you see initially, you do see the center of pelvis move off the golf ball away from the target line, or in the opposite direction of what Segudo Golf is going to tell you to do here in a second. That's absolutely true, and you can actually see that on video. But now towards the top of the swing, he's actually going to start to recenter that pelvis back to pretty much where it was at address, or slightly ahead of where it was at address. And we call that the recentering move, right? We did a video with Athletic Motion Golf where they break down with 3D gears animation, and you can see that quite clearly, right? So you're not seeing, I don't think anyone really consistently shifting the center of pelvis forward throughout the whole backswing. Maybe some stack and tilt guys back in the day, maybe 2008, 2009, we're getting close to that. But for the most part, that theory definitely has died out, and that's not true. And even if you want to be a better striker and you're an amateur golfer and you want that simpler golf swing, I don't necessarily think keeping the center of pelvis shifting laterally towards the target throughout the whole backswing is the approach you want to do. You're typically going to probably get too much pressure on the lead side too much, And then from there, you're probably going to back away as you start to approach the golf ball, which is actually what you see him do in his particular swing, which we'll bring up here in a little bit. But for the most part, I think Ben Hogan shifted off the golf ball with the center of the pelvis. Right when his hands are right around shoulder height, he starts to shift back towards kind of this setup position or slightly ahead of it. And that's what I see. So let's go kind of hear his breakdown of the video though.
He's got his hips going like this, more towards the target. The tailbone is moving this way.
All right, let's stop here. So he's going to be using this kind of picture right here as kind of a reference point, right? So the blue one right here is going to be where he's at setup. He has that same oval here. And he's saying at the top of the swing, notice how the center of the pelvis is ahead of that, which I heavily agree with. But that's not taking into account what he was doing earlier, right? So the center of the pelvis was initially shifting slightly off of this blue line. And then when his hands got right around kind of shoulder height, now it starts to shift back forward, right? The recentering move that is ever so prevalent with all the best ball strikers. He's kind of mistakenly taking that as you need to be shifting that center of pelvis laterally forward the whole golf swing, which is absolutely incorrect, mechanically speaking, and that's definitely not what the players are doing. But maybe he knows that and he's just saying this to simplify the golf swing, right? Because he is that simple golf coach, or maybe he truly believes this. But if he truly believes it in the real, that's definitely not what's happening.
And this is the key that will make you a pro ball striker. Any golfer could do this and see amazing results. So in your golf swing, you've got to think about keeping the weight more on the front side. When you do this, it's like setting up a post on your front leg. Your contact point with the ball on the ground will always stay the same.
So let's stop it there. So as you can quite clearly tell, and we've done this in the other video that we reacted to him, very much more so kind of like a stack and tilt type of instructor, or kind of this lead side post pivot type of instructor. And if we go back to kind of the Mike Adams videos where he said there's kind of three basic pivots, right? There's the people who pivot around the lead foot, people who kind of pivot a little bit more centered to that, and then people who have a little bit of a shift off the golf ball, right? So Tiger Woods would have that shift back in 2000. Maybe the stack and tilt guys are actually kind of, you know, churning around that lead post, probably the closest to it. And then maybe there's someone in between, which I can't think of anyone on the top of my head, but there'd be more so that center post player. So what he's talking about for you amateur golfers, if you want to have good low point, which means for most people with an iron, you typically want to have low point either at the ball or slightly ahead of the ball. You know, this is all relative to swing speed, which I think could be, you know, talked about in this video. There's not a lot of context there, but definitely swing speed has a, you know, big influence on where you want the low point. But besides that, you typically want the low point at the ball or slightly ahead, right? So his theory is if you get it already stacked there on the backswing, you can just keep it there in transition and everything's gonna be good and you're gonna have good solid contact. So this is assuming that low point is directly tied to where the pelvis is, which I heavily disagree with. We're gonna get into that point in a little bit, but let's continue to hear his whole spiel.
So there's consistency. You knock out the problem of hitting behind the ball, of hitting thin, of topping, all that annoying stuff. So we've got consistency for one. Two, when you set this front post, you can turn your hips a whole lot more. All
right, let's stop it there. So this is another thing that I think is actually just, you know, factually incorrect, right? You don't have to post up on this lead side to be able to turn your hips a whole lot more. You can actually have a shift off the golf ball, but as long as that trail hip is clearing at some point, you can still get quite a bit of hip churn. Now he is going to bring up a point where he talks about kind of this knee staying in a flex position. I do think that definitely limits the pelvis rotation, right? It's going to definitely make it more difficult to do. I agree with that point when he's about to bring up. But when it comes to you have to be on this lead side to get a lot of pelvis rotation, that's just factually incorrect.
You really can't turn your hips over a fixed or flexed right leg. It's just so hard to do. You're locking the hips. There's knee pain, there's lower back pain, not fun. But if you can stay over the front side, you can turn for days. You can turn as much as an owl turns his head. That's a lot of turn.
Okay, let's stop it there. So I'm not even going to address that particular point because that's kind of pointless. But I do have a picture right here of Ben Hogan swinging. I do want to actually go back a little bit, a couple clicks, and I want you guys to watch this trail hip initially off the golf ball and then watch the center of the pelvis start to recenter later. I do think this is an interesting part that I do want to personally talk about. So let's kind of skip back here. Let's get to a point where we see Ben Hogan kind of do the move. So right around here is going to be where we look. So let me skip back a couple frames. I really want you guys from address, watch this kind of center, or not the center, watch the kind of the right hip here, watch the movement off the golf ball, and then watch when the hands get kind of close to right around shoulder height, watch that hip start to move back, right? So the center of the pelvis is recentering. Let's watch that move really closely here. All right, that's it for you guys on YouTube, but before you guys click off, let me give some quick wrap-up points. So when it comes to these simple golf instructors, just like we talked about in the last one, you got to be really careful with who they're making the video for, and you got to be really careful with how they give the advice, right? Because they typically water down the advice to a point to where it's almost detrimental most of the time from what I've found with this video. So this specific video, I think the really watered down part was the center of pelvis movement throughout the backswing. He wants that center of pelvis to move towards the target side throughout the backswing, which is what you don't see any great players do. Now, maybe you see a few stack and tilt players where they stay quite centered or almost heavily on that lead side on the backswing, but you don't see anyone actually consistently shifting that center of pelvis forward the whole backswing. That's just not the case. Also, when it comes to the part about Ben Hogan, we can quite clearly see Ben Hogan is actually shifting back towards the target side after he actually shifts off the golf ball. Old great players, even if they're kind of, churning around the lead side post, they're still having a little bit of a shift off the golf ball when it comes to pressure and center mass. And then they recenter somewhere right around when the hands are shoulder height. That's the move, right? That's the recentering move. We did a video on athletic motion golf about that. You guys should definitely check that out. But what he's talking about is absolutely mechanically false. But maybe for a certain audience, it's very helpful, right? Because feel versus real typically rules. So maybe for a person who has a massive hip slide, amateur golfer watching this, it could be helpful to have that feeling, because the net result will not be actually what he tells you to do. It's going to be somewhere in the middle, which is where you'll want to be, right? So this is why we're making these videos. Hopefully you can be more informed when you guys watch YouTube out there. Again, if you guys want to watch the whole video, because there's a lot more concepts on this video we didn't talk about on YouTube, make sure to sign up for the Kiwi Platinum membership site. Not only are you going to get access to this video, but 330 other videos, and we post right around 20 new videos every single month. So it would really help support this YouTube channel if you guys could go ahead and sign up, and you get access to all those videos. So there'll be a link down below for that. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys in the next video.